When I was 19, I was working briefly in a real job. I had a real job once, and I was a beauty therapist, and one of my clients was worked as an erotic dancer. And so I used to talk to her about it. And, well, actually, the first session that I had with her, I talked to her for probably 2 hours, I think the session was. And by the end of the session, I convinced myself, or she convinced me, that I wanted to do it too. So I gave up my job that week, and I started working as a table dancer, or an erotic dancer, or as a stripper, whatever you want to call it. And I learnt many things from that. I learnt, well, I suppose what it was a sex-positive environment in a fairly sex-negative culture that we grew up in. So I saw sex as playful, as fun, and I also saw the power dynamic that women had over men with sex, because obviously most of the customers in strip joints are men, pretty much exclusively. And yeah, it gave me a real different spin on sex than I had learned from culture. And I saw that there was something really beautiful about it. I did that job for about 6 years, and in the process of that time I was realising and understanding I had a lot of healing to do myself, both emotional, physical, everything. I had a lot of issues, and I eventually stopped stripping to work on those issues, and I spent about 6 years doing healing, self-development, going to every support group I could find, dealing with eating disorder stuff, dealing with chronic fatigue, lots of other physical issues. But I learned a lot about self-development in that time. I received a lot of body work. I came across something called craniosacral therapy, which is a very subtle, hands-on body work that often helps people release emotions from their body. And I kind of fell in love with that body work, so I trained in that time period. So I had these two areas of my life, the sexual and the healing. And when I met John 7 years ago, he said to me, "Have you ever considered doing sexual healing work?" And I was like, "What's that?" I didn't really know that it existed as a job. And he said that he noticed in me that I didn't have shame in sex, and that was something that seemed quite new to him, quite unusual to him. And I kind of knew I was like that, but it was feedback for me. It was kind of new information. So I spent the next 6 years doing every course in Tantra, conscious sexuality, and yeah, kind of more healing work, sex coaching, and yeah, here I am. I've been doing bodywork bodywork and coaching for the last 7 years. And yeah, my journey, I won't go into too much of my personal journey around my own sexuality, but now I'm at a point where I regularly have whole body orgasms, so lots of sound, breathing deeply, waves of energy moving through my body kind of moving without me moving it. It's hard to explain, but you may just experience it later. I can breathe myself into a whole body orgasm in 3 or 4 breaths, just by breathing, basically. And if someone strokes pretty much anywhere on my body, not genital touch at all, I'm in whole body orgasmic waves. So yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about what blocks people from having more pleasure. And the first thing that I came up with was messages that we receive, whether those are conscious, whether someone actually says anything to us, or whether we just kind of pick them up. We just figure out that those are the messages. So the first one, and the most dominant one that I notice, is that sex is shameful. We may have heard that, we may have picked it up. It kind of originates from, or possibly originates from, organised religions. There was a lot of stuff in Western religions about the body not being all that important, and it was all about the higher planes or the afterlife, and not really being present in the body. So Tantra and maybe Taoism too are religions or philosophies that pay a lot more attention to the body, and I'm wondering if that's part of the reason that they're gaining more popularity right now. People are drawn to things like Tantra. And sex is a subtle way of manipulating and controlling people, and I think if you break somebody's self-esteem or break them down around sex, then they lose some of their power. So yeah, shame, basically. I mean, our parents, so it depends on how old you are, but in the sexual revolution in the 60s, a lot of that changed, but I still think that we carry a lot of shame. And a way that you can sort of test that in your mind, if you think about how were your parents around sex? Did they speak openly and freely and happily and joyfully about sex to you, or were they a little bit held back or a bit embarrassed or a bit ashamed about it? I'm sure not everybody had that experience, but it seems to be the dominating experience. So in this environment, how do we learn about sex if few people are really thoroughly teaching it? So that might be through porn, that might be just through bumbling along and figuring it out with whoever we have as lovers, or you may be really lucky that you meet an experienced, shame-free lover who's willing to teach you the art and skills of lovemaking. And that kind of seems to be rare in my experience. So what else gets in the way of us having more pleasure? I noticed that now we don't have any rites of passage anymore. It's debatable whether we ever did. I think it's possible that we did, but what there's nothing to kind of mark the adolescent moving from being a child into an adult, to mark and honour that sexual awakening. So I'm wanting you to close your eyes, and I'm just going to talk you through. It's not really a meditation, it's just going to be a couple of minutes. Close your eyes, and I want you to imagine yourself as an adolescent, just at that point where you're reaching puberty. And imagine that within your community, within your tribe, there's been a ritual created for you, where you're honoured and initiated into sexual pleasure. An older, trusted member of your community or tribe who's willing to guide you into a sensual sexual experience where nothing is expected of you, it's just a space to explore sexuality at your pace. They're in service to you. It may bring up various things, but just staying with that ritual, imagining that ritual, only in the positive sense, if you can, staying with the positive sense of that. And while you have your eyes closed, I'm just going to read you 2 quotes from a book by Margot Anand, a woman who's been teaching Tantra as long as I've been alive. And she says that erotic experience is a celebration, an act of creation, and an art. She also says that orgasm is not just a sexual event, but it can be expanded to embrace the body, mind, heart, and spirit. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes again. So I'm wondering if anybody heard those messages in their sex education. I'm going to read another list of unhelpful messages that I've kind of noticed going around. Things like big penis equals better orgasms, only big breasts are sexy, harder and faster is best, Foreplay is just a prelude to the real thing, which is intercourse. Orgasm is the goal. There's only one way to do it right. Good girls don't. Men should always initiate sex. Male ejaculation and orgasm are the same thing. Monogamy is the highest moral way to have sex. Penetration can happen in minutes and will be ecstatic. You may have got that from movies, movie sex. Having fun is wasting time, and pleasure is selfish. Those are all messages that I've come across in my work over and over again. So do they help us have expansive sexual experiences? Not really. Another thing that can get in the way of pleasure, there are going to be solutions at the end of this, it's not all bad. But another thing that gets in the way is we are creatures of habit. Often we will learn how to do certain things sexually and then we'll just keep doing them. And we'll do them in a similar fashion, repeated. Maybe we'll switch them around a bit, but much of sex is learned responses. So for example, if a man who was brought up in an environment where sex was shameful, if he learned to masturbate, you know, as he was anxious and he was maybe worried that he would be discovered, he would be masturbating fairly quickly with some shame involved, and he'd be trying to get it over and done with quickly. So if he carries on with that habit of masturbation, so quickly, fast, hard, get it over with, he's going to take that pattern into his lovemaking. I see a lot of that with men who have premature ejaculation. At least it's one of the causes. So other general things that can really shut down pleasure: lack of variety of touch, touching too hard. Somehow when we touch too hard, it brings about a numbness. So there's something like less is more in touch. The less you touch, the more the senses are awakened, the more the senses kind of come out to meet the touch rather than retreat and guard and numb. Moving too quickly to genital touch. That's a big one that it's very easy for guys to pick up from porn. If porn is a man's main sexual education, which is often the case in this culture, particularly now, what can happen is, particularly for women, when women have genital touch too early on, it's like their yoni, their genitals are not really ready for the touch, and they can kind of go with it, but it's not as amazing as maybe if the person had waited another 10 or 20 minutes and touched the rest of the body, awoken the whole woman's body. Same for men, although men generally wouldn't complain if you touch the penis quite early. So not breathing much. Often people will slow their breathing down and really not breathe very much in sex. I don't know why that is. I think there's general shame about anyone hearing us breathe. Like if you can imagine being in a lift, an elevator, and taking a really big loud sigh. Like in the UK, people would look at you like, what's wrong with you? It's just not a done thing. So we don't breathe very much, which shuts down our ability to receive pleasure. I don't exactly know how, but it does. So staying silent is kind of part of that, not making any noises of pleasure, because we might think that sounds silly, or it sounds like we like it too much, and then they might think we're too promiscuous or whatever. There's all kinds of messages involved in that. Staying really still when we're receiving pleasure is not helpful. Movement is breath, sound and movement you'll hear a lot about in Tantra and Taoism for creating more sexual energy moving through the body. People tense towards the orgasm as well. They kind of reach towards the orgasm and it doesn't help. What it means is you get a faster orgasm, but it's not a very amazing one, a very expansive one. So solutions, is anyone ready for solutions? Opening up your understanding of pleasure and orgasm is a big beginning. And a saying that I often say is way more than you think is possible. So I've been to workshops around female ejaculation, and one of the teachers there, she told me oftentimes all you have to do is tell women that it is possible for this to happen to their bodies, and even if you don't tell them how, they go home that evening and they female ejaculate with their lovers. So just opening up our understanding our beliefs is a really good beginning. The first Tantra workshop that I ever went to in London, it was a 2-day workshop, and they spent lots of time building up the energy. There was no genital touch in this workshop at all. There was some dancing, there was some massage, but no genitals involved, very kind of clean and boundaried. There was lots of meditation, and then at the end of the workshop they had us all lay, it was quite a big workshop, maybe 70 people, they had us all lay in a mandala, so like a circle pattern on the floor, and I remember noticing, I couldn't really see what was happening, but I could hear other people making sounds of pleasure, and I was thinking, what on earth are they doing? And then a few minutes later this thing started happening to me, like my body was moving of its own accord, and these waves of pleasure were going through me. Not like genital orgasm, but kind of bigger. It was almost like out here, this pleasure, this thing that was happening to me. And the point of that is nobody touched my genitals. It was not like a genital experience at all. It was like bliss happening to me. So what if we expanded the possibility that orgasm could happen in your nipples, in your G-spot, in your cervix? People may have already heard of those. What about while you were kissing, while you were giving oral sex? What about while someone was in a non-sexual way stroking your body? Random things like in your shin. I've had a client orgasm in his shin in a session with me. Your tummy, your third eye. That's happened to me often, just through breathing. The whole of your body, and even your energetic body. There's various spiritual disciplines that talk about all different names, but that our body extends out to a bigger area, the aura. There's so many different names for it. So just allow those possibilities to soak into your awareness. There are also some other attitudes that will really help facilitate experiencing more ecstasy. So, learning self-love. Loving yourself means that you deserve the experience of ecstasy. Cultivating pleasure. So, oftentimes you have to clear some negative beliefs that block this, but when I say, and I do a lot of that in my coaching, things like, I don't really deserve pleasure. The way around a lot of that stuff is also to do practices. I give, in my bodywork sessions, I do a lot of emotional release, and there's a meditation that I give to clients where they can kind of do that on their own. It's a self-empathy meditation, so you're paying attention to your body, and often emotions are released in that. I also give my clients self-pleasuring rituals, and John will bring in a sheet later that you can put your email down if you want me to email one of those out to you. So doing, not thinking, is how to resolve these kind of blocks to cultivating pleasure. And basically making time to immerse yourself in pleasure, making a date with yourself to self-pleasure, or making a date with your partner, even if you've been together for years, really clearing a space in your life for pleasure. Another thing that really helps is meditation. So it clears the confusion that we have in our daily lives. We're often not really in our bodies. We're thinking about things, and I suppose the analogy is like if you put sand and water in a bottle and you shake it up and the sand disperses through the bottle. Well, when you meditate, it's like that sand is allowed to settle, and you've got clear water in the bottle. So you're able to make space for pleasure, bring attention to feelings and sensations rather than thoughts and future and past and plans. And in my meditation practice, I regularly have energetic orgasms happening. It's like the universe is making love to me. It's really quite amazing. And you can get there too. The last attitude that I want to talk about is giving up on goals. So instead of expecting an orgasm after a certain point, or just expecting that you will have an orgasm, you're letting go of that expectation in order to experience more ecstatic experiences. So it's a bit of a paradox. Instead of heading for this one goal that you might be used to, this one particular kind of orgasm that you're used to having, you're just surrendering to the experience. You're being present in the moment, and in that state anything can happen. So the how-to. I always teach breathing to my clients. I can demo that, and then I'll talk to you a bit about how to do it. So you're breathing in and you're inflating the lower belly like a balloon. And on the out breath, your belly kind of comes in of its own accord. So you're breathing in through your nose, inflating your lower belly, and breathing out through your mouth, letting it go. So the next thing I'm going to bring in is sounds. So on the out breath, you're bringing in a sigh, like you're in your own room, nobody's paying attention to you, and you're just sighing out. I'll demo it. So do you want to breathe with me? Do you want to practice that? You can close your eyes if you want. So breathing in through the nose, inflating your lower belly, and sighing out. That's great. On your belly, make sure it's inflating on the in-breath. Just two more. Just letting go of it. You may already be able to feel that that's perhaps relaxed you, brought you more into your body, brought you more into feelings and sensations. May even be a little bit of bliss there, maybe not. So yeah, that's breath and sounds. They kind of happen together. And the more, in a sense, the more sounds that you can make, the more pleasurable sounds you can make in lovemaking, the more pleasurable it becomes. And there's always a bit of a hump for people to get over of, you know, I feel silly, I sound silly, will anyone hear? But if you can get through that, it really, really makes a big difference. So movement is something, well, it's two things. It's something that can just happen to you, or if it's not doing, you can act as if. So you can start moving your body. So if you move your hips, you're kind of doing a pelvic tilt. That's almost like the energy pump for sexual energy. It kind of brings energy through your body. You may have heard in Kundalini Yoga, they talk about the symbolic serpent coiled at the base of the spine, and how once that's awoken, it can move up through the chakras. That's the chakra system they're talking about. So what you're doing is you're creating movement in that sexual center. The chakras system talks about the base and the sexual chakra. So you're moving, and that somehow it just ignites that sexual energy that moves through your body. So it's like you move, and then the movement takes over. You may experience this later in the meditation. And touch, the type of touch that really helps to become more orgasmic is long flowing whole body strokes, and variation too. So not just one kind of stroke, but you can maybe bring in the nails, feathers, something furry or fluffy. So you're really giving your partner or yourself a varied build-up of touch before you move on to genital or anything more overtly sexual, anything more obviously sexual, genital touch, etc. And with that touch as well, what can happen, or what it's great to intend, is that you're moving sexual energy through the body, or life force energy. I know it sounds really woo, but I'm quite sciencey. John's very sciencey, but when I do this work with clients or when we exchange sessions, it's like there's this phenomena of something moving through the body, something energetic flowing through the body, and then the body moves on its own. It's really quite amazing. And then what you have is a whole body, not just a genital experience. In Tantra they talk about the chakras, so if you're having a genital sexual experience, there's nothing wrong with that, it's very pleasurable, it's lovely, but it can be a little bit limited. Like if you can bring that experience up through the whole of your body with breath, sounds and movement, that will be pretty amazing.